Hello and welcome to Are We Dating? My name is Javi. I am a singer, songwriter who has written many a love song. I'm also a casting producer who's cast a couple of dating shows in my time. And through these combined passions and my nosiness regarding my friends' dating lives and relationships, I decided to take this podcast because what was the world crying out for? Another man with a microphone. This is a podcast where I sit down with singles and discuss the trials, tribulations, and occasional triumphs of dating and relationships in two of the worst dating cities, probably in the universe: the Big Apple, New York City, and the City of Angels, which I also call the City of Ghosts and Demons, Los Angeles. Today, I am sitting down with my first guest ever, somebody who lives in New York City, where I was born, and had spent, or rather squandered, my best dating years. I am here today with a colleague turned friend, Skye. I can't believe we're finally doing this.
I know. City of Ghosts, by the way. That was really funny.
I mean, I feel like it goes without saying with LA. Lots of ghosts in the city.
You need to come up with one for New York.
The Big Apple with a big worm in it.
Yeah. The big asshole.
I don't want to garner like any ire from people in New York. I feel like the big asshole's a little strong, but
It is.
we'll workshop it. So for those listening, Skye and I met at work and we quickly became friends, and I've been following her dating adventures via social media ever since. Skye, give us a little background.
So I'm Skye. I'm originally from Atlanta, but I have lived in New York for the last 10 years. I do event programming. So essentially I book speakers and prepare journalists for big interviews. And aside from that, I'm also basically a professional dater. All of my friends are kept fully informed of all the insane dates and crazy stories that I go through. And if you're in my close friend circle on Instagram, you see my dating diaries every week, which has all of the horror stories and very few successful stories.
Honestly, your stories are one of my favorite shows. Have to tune in, can't miss it. But when I first met you, you were in a long-term relationship. So I've watched you go from that to Carrie Bradshaw with the Samantha Jones job.
Favorite Miranda, very important.
Why Miranda too?
Miranda's actually the best out of all of the Sex and the City characters. She's the feminist, she's badass, she's career driven. To be a Carrie, I would have been very flattered by that 10 years ago, but now I've evolved. I'm a mature woman, and I embrace my Mirandaism.
When I say Carrie, it's not the cringy aspects of Carrie's personality, which there are many. It's a fun, curly-haired storyteller. But we'll throw in Miranda for the feminism.
I think we can agree there's no Charlotte in here whatsoever.
No, but I do love Charlotte and Harry, but that's a discussion for another time.
Yes.
So Atlanta, another really rough dating environment from what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know. I was very unattractive in high school. No one ever liked me. College was kind of where I explored and everything. I went to school in Athens, Georgia, but the bulk of my dating experience is New York. When I was growing up, I used to say that I was going to be one of those people who was married to my career. That might have been because no one was interested in me. So I was pre-rejecting people before they could reject me. And now that I've gotten older, it's like I've gotten the career. Now I would like to complement it with the relationship as well.
How many long-term relationships have you had?
2.5. So my last one was about 3.5 years. That ended about a year and a half ago or so. The one before that was 2 years, and he was awful. She cheated on me all the time. I had a quasi boyfriend in college. I look back and I'm like, can I really call him my boyfriend? I'm not so sure. So that's the half.
I've definitely had those moments where I've looked back at the person that I used to consider my first boyfriend. I looked back at that in retrospect, as an adult. I was pretty young at the time. This person's communication style, he would text me every 3 days, but consistently. And I think at the time I was like, maybe this is just how men communicate with each other. And that was a relationship in my mind, and I think a situationship on the other end.
Well, we didn't have that word back then, situationship. Now I think a lot of the relationships I had were situationships, but just didn't know how to define it.
I was thinking about that the other day. I wrote a song called Situation. And it was because I think I was so sick of having that experience of being put in that that in between zone and I didn't have a word for it. And I was like, oh, fine, then I'm going to play the game. I just want a situation. That was like pre situationship.
Wait, did you coin situationship?
Maybe it was me to check with the Library of Congress. Yeah. And it's weird to go back to your youth and kind of like look at the trajectory of your growth as a person. So, your last relationship was during a pretty important period of your life. It was kind of Saturn return, right?
I don't know that sort of stuff.
It's kind of that period at the end of your 20s into your 30s.
It was the relationship where it was the most serious, it was the most stable I ever had. I turned 30 while I was with him. In my mind, in your 30s, that's when you start thinking about marriage, having kids, and become a little bit more accepting of traits just because you think, well, the clock is ticking. I had this moment where I was like, wait, I live in New York City. Like a 30 in New York is 20 anywhere else. And so there's been a lot of self exploration about like, why did I think that I had to settle down at such a young age when I still have so much life left to live? We broke up. My ex, we had a great relationship. No relationship is ever going to be perfect. I don't want to trash it, but traits that he had probably meant that we weren't compatible. I don't want to feel like I am someone's mother in a relationship. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly nagging someone. And I learned I'm fully okay being by myself and I'm not going to lower my standards just to not be single.
Talk to me a little bit about starting your dating journey after this relationship and some of the challenges you encountered.
I'm on all of the apps. So I think one of the downsides of being on the apps is it's really easy to assume that there's this one little flaw with someone. Swipe left, there's going to be another person. There are a million options. I lament about it, but I'm also part of the problem. And also, a lot has changed around how people view relationships and romance. I mean, when I was on the apps 8 years ago, I don't remember so many people saying that they were poly or ethically non monogamous or were so open about kinks that they had. Now that's a very open conversation. And I'm thankful for it because it's also made me kind of think, okay, I don't necessarily have to have this very traditional relationship that I always thought that I would have. It's kind of like learning a whole new world now, dating in your 30s or dating in 2025 in general.
It's interesting that you mentioned you can swipe endlessly and find the perfect person. That is a hallmark of these bigger cities with massive population where there's a lot of turnover. It kind of feels like water everywhere and not a drop to drink. And to your point about navigating these new terms and relationships in the gay community, open relationships are so common. And I feel like sometimes some of the best people, it's like, oh, they're taken. Now you're in a space where they could be partially available to you. So yeah, it's a lot to navigate, especially in these cities with people who are more progressive.
It's challenging, but I'm also grateful. I've always thought that I'm just fully monogamous. And now, after having been cheated on, I see like maybe the most traditional relationships aren't necessarily the best. While I'm still monogamous in what I'm looking for, my eyes are open to the world of monogamish.
That definitely opens you up to a wider world of possibility. My only thing is anytime you're engaging in something open or poly, there's so much work that has to be done internally on yourself to make sure that you're coming at this from the best place possible and that you're not making any concessions. And then obviously you have to be with somebody who's also willing to do the work themselves because I definitely know people who have been in poly or monogamish relationships where it kind of felt like a band-aid. There's this whole idea that a lot of these men in the gay community are in open relationships because they have low attention spans or they're not attracted to each other anymore. You have to have the foundation there to make sure you're coming at it from the healthiest place.
It requires a lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of communication. And I think it has to go in as a strategy and not as a band aid. Because if you had agreed to be monogamous and then you stray from the relationship and then you deem it as poly or open, that's not what you agreed to from the start. And there are issues that you need to discuss. I am not poly, but I have friends who are. And the amount of communication they have to, have and discuss potential issues with jealousy or what it means if someone has an additional partner. It's a lot of work and frankly it's probably too much work for a lot of people.
I agree. Sometimes I see people and I think that they have it figured out, and then I'll find out something down the road, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't as healthy as I thought. And I'm looking for the model couple or the model triad or polycule, and I'm not sure I've found it yet.
I don't think I have either, but it's kind of refreshing because it makes you feel like, okay, like I'm not alone. Like it's not just me who's not capable of having this perfect relationship.
Very true. Wait, I want to go back to apps. What apps are you currently on and what apps have you tried and abandoned?
Oh my God. Javi, I'm on like every app that has ever existed. And I'm also on like experiential websites and other things too. Like I've tried it all. Hinge, Bumble. I'm also on Field. I've had a lot of really fascinating pings and requests for things that I had never heard of before. There's this person who keeps asking to play with my hair, which kind of sounds nice, honestly, but I haven't responded yet. But those are the three that are probably the most successful. But like I've been on OkCupid, JSwipe to meet Jewish people. And then when I travel internationally, everyone still uses Tinder.
And have you tried Raya?
But yeah, I've been on Raya. I don't know. I feel like people just want to be on Raya and they don't actually meet up. Have you been on it?
I was on Raya. I got on it late. I wasn't on it when it was hot and it was only famous people, but I got a referral, a shout out to my friend Jeff. He's like a prominent K-pop journalist. So he was like, "Oh, I'll give you a referral." And he's like actually happily booed up now. I don't think they met on Raya though. So I got on and I matched with three people. One guy responded. And honestly, I was kind of excited because if you know me, you know that I'm like a big comic book nerd, like have written about comic books professionally on websites.
Wait, I didn't know this about you, Javi.
Yeah, yeah, very briefly, very briefly. A big comic book nerd, big X-Men fan, like know the deep lore. And he is a comic book artist and he's worked for Marvel, he worked for DC, so he's drawn really awesome images of like X-Men characters, Catwoman and Poison Ivy. And he seemed really nice. We tried to meet up for a month. I was traveling to 6 cities and he had a lot of work. So I was busy, then he was busy, and then I got sick, and then he was traveling. I bought his art book during this whole period because it was really cool. It's really great. He's really talented.
Did he know that you bought it?
Yeah, I told him. But by the time I got around to like checking in with him again, he was seeing somebody. So it was this whole like month and a half of running around. And that was like my one Ryan match.
I don't know any like normal person who has successfully found a relationship on Raya. I feel like it is much more of a status thing. And it's kind of fun to see a celebrity every now and then.
You know, what I learned, I would get certain people sent my way. And I'm like, I didn't know this person like dudes. They won't filter that.
Another flaw of Raya. They don't make that clear.
Are you open to going on a date with a woman?
I've only ever dated men. I don't actually think that I'm like sexually attracted to women, but maybe I have to try it. Like if I met the right person, I would do it, but it hasn't happened yet.
You're attracted to people based on their energy, right? I feel like there's some people who are getting a relationship with somebody because they have deep pockets or they're really hot.
For me, it's nice if someone is attractive physically, but for me, that grows. I need like a really fun vibe. I want to know that they're driven and ambitious. And if we were to have a family, that they could help build up that family with me and not mooch off of me. You know, a nice beard is helpful, a good sense of humor. But overall, like I want to feel like I'm connecting with their personality. I would not be compatible with someone who was just really attractive, but had a shit personality. I want it all.
Wait, what are you drinking over there?
I have wine, water. I keep mixing up which glass is which. So I'm surprised every time.
Do you have like an archetype, a celebrity crush? Mine is Mason Gooding.
Okay. I did have to look him up. He definitely looks like people that you've sent me photos of where you're like, I'm talking to this person and I'm probably going to see them. And then they like ghost you or something.
Wow, put my business out there. It's funny because, you know, Mason Gooding kind of reminds me of this rut I got into out in LA. I was going after these F-boy Latinos. They all had like 5 tattoos. They were all indigenous Latino men. They were like 3D printed with modifications from the same mold. One of the 4 of them was from LA. The rest, I think, were from like New York, maybe one from the Bay Area. They were all artistic. It was like dancer, artist, actor, musician. They all had this like guru energy online, like they knew everything. But at the end of the day, they were like truly just fuckboys, avoidant, in and out of touch. Like, is it this aesthetic that is attracting this behavior? I'm just trying to figure it out so I can avoid it moving forward. But Mason Gooding, as you see, more than 5 tattoos. I wouldn't be surprised if he has daddy issues.
If you like him, then he probably does.
Wow. But like historically, I don't have a type. But yeah. How about you?
I'm done roasting you now. Yeah, I don't know if I have like a celebrity go-to. I mean, I'm very attracted to the intensity of Adam Driver, but I know that he's not necessarily the most aesthetic, but there's something like sexy and mysterious about him, and I like that. I think I had a sexual awakening to 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger. I think I do like someone who's a little bit dark and intense, but maybe has like a softer side that only you get to see. I think that actually might be like a through line with some of my relationships too, now that I think about it.
So are we gonna be okay? Is this like a childhood wound that we have to heal?
Yeah, doesn't feel too far off.
Yeah, I did want to say to your Adam Driver point where you're like he's not the most aesthetic. I used to live in Brooklyn Heights and I saw him one day. In person, it reads differently. He's also the size of a mighty sequoia. He's just a mountain of a man. I'm pretty tall. I'm about like 6 feet tall, and I feel like I had to like crane my neck to look up at him. So I see the appeal.
I actually do not like when I go out with someone and they're really, really tall. Statistically, it just doesn't work. I'm 5'5". There was a guy that I almost went on a date with. He was like 7'3", and I was like, should I just do this for the story? But women are always like, oh yeah, it has to be 6'5", and I'm like, no, I'm good with a good 5'10".
What other pet peeves do you have?
Well, in my dating, a lot of men are very proud of the fact that they didn't vote or have some creepy affinity for like RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard. And for me, that is a total red flag. So political interest and awareness that aligns with my views is really important to me. Also, I feel if you go to a restaurant and a man is not willing to share food with you, huge red flag. It shows like what they would be like in the rest of their relationship. Like, I hate that so much.
That's fair. I don't mind sharing, but sometimes I get a lot of anxiety around sharing. I don't want to eat too much of this thing because I'm accounting for your portion. And I'm waiting to see if you're going to eat more, because if you're not, I'm going to finish it because I'm like a human garbage disposal. So like, I would never say no if somebody asked me to share on a date, but sometimes it's not my preference.
This is why we would never work out, Javi.
I would share with you, but at the same time, just need to make sure that I'm going to be fed.
I am always someone who orders way too much food, so I don't think that that is an issue. Those are two big things. Also, a lot of men kind of pride themselves for being brutally honest. I think that that's a way to be rude. You can be honest in a non-brutal way.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately, how like people value brutal honesty. And I feel like it's this efficiency born out of this capitalist hellscape that we're in. It's like, we have limited time. We need to be productive. This is a waste of my time. And I hate that shit because emotional intelligence is so important.
I know. Or people will also be like, I don't do small talk. No one loves small talk, but in order to get to big talk, sometimes you have to start with the small talk. You see that on dating apps all the time. And I don't want to have someone reach out to me and say like, how was your weekend? I want something better than that. But to just like be fully anti small talk is very limiting.
I feel like sometimes when I'm on the apps, the harder I try, the worse response I get. I feel like sometimes men will see too much effort as off-putting.
For me, I want someone to put in a little bit of effort, especially because I don't want to sound like a jerk, but like I receive a lot of messages. And if you're going to send me something,
Let him know, Skye. Let him know.
Something that doesn't show that you like know anything about my life or like read my profile, why would I respond to you versus someone who maybe sent me a funny joke or like has a specific question about something that I posted?
You know, as you say that, I'm realizing like I swipe right on so many people who have one piece of information in their profile. Like, why do I do that? It's like, oh, they're attractive, so maybe.
But if they don't have a lot of information in their bio, but you feel that there was some reason that you wanted to connect, I do have a really dorky opening line. You send them a lime emoji and you put in parentheses, that was my opening line. And I'm telling you, people hate it, but they love it and they always respond.
I'm going to try that. I feel like I'm going to get unmatched. I'm going to get blocked. But, I'm in it for the plot.
You got to be creative.
Also, my sense of humor can be a little specific. I think when I like somebody, I get in my head and complicated with my humor. Sometimes I look back at some shit I say and I'm like, wow.
I know
like,
It is.
workshop that with ChatGPT next time or something.
Okay, but also some people are using AI and ChatGPT to talk for them, and that is horrifying because imagine having this great conversation with someone only to find out that they weren't involved at all.
I'm starting to notice it too in profiles and in conversation. I'm like, oh, this is definitely not human generated. But yes, I'm going to try your opening line. We'll see how it goes.
Good luck.
You have many interesting dating experiences. I wanted to talk about some of the more memorable ones.
Yep. Interesting dates in New York. I feel like I have gone on so many that I don't even remember the worst ones. One that was actually hilarious. I had an extra ticket to one of those symphonies by candlelight. I was like, oh, this will be like a really romantic date. I found this guy, maybe on like Tinder. It was a while ago, and he was bald in the app. I like bald, especially like if there's a nice beard to go along with it. But he showed up and he had spray painted hair on with like fibers kind of like coming out of them. And I couldn't stay silent. I was like, whoa, this is different than what was in your photos. And he was like, yeah, I'm trying something new. I was like, you know what? Okay, I can get over this. I'm going to try not to stare. But this candlelight symphony, it was in this really hot church with no AC. And then by the end of the date, spray paint was like kind of dripping down his face. You remember like Giuliani had the dye coming down his face at like a press conference? Like it looked exactly like that. Yeah, it was just so bad. And then at the end of it, he went in for a hug and I was like, I'm wearing a nice dress. I don't want you to get this on me. That was definitely a very memorable date. And I wonder where he is now. He seems like one of those people who probably went to Turkey and got the hair transplant.
I watch Batman Returns every Christmas, so it's fresh in my mind. The penguin from Batman Returns.
I know.
It's just like all of the black liquid dripping out of his eyes, dripping out of his mouth. That's what I imagine this guy looked like.
That was pretty bad. Another one, it was like 23 or 24. I met up with a guy. We got drinks in Brooklyn. We connected. We had a lot in common. Date ends. He's like, do you want me to take you home? And it turned out that he got there on his motorcycle. So I was like, oh, cool. And he pulled this stunt where he was like, the cool thing about riding a bike is that people will do anything you ask. Then he just called over some random guy who was sitting outside of a bar drinking a beer. And he said, hey, can I have a sip? And the guy walked over, brought his beer. And this dude took a sip of the beer, threw his helmet, gave him the beer back, and then we zipped off. And 23-year-old me was like, oh, man, that was the hottest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then he dropped me off. We had another couple of dates, but on the third date, he picked me up in his car. He had a lot of modes of transportation. He was like, before we go to this restaurant, would you mind helping me move this rug? And I was like, sure. I was in heels and like a nice dress. I was not dressed for that. Turns out it was a rug, a bunch of boxes, and I helped this dude move. We got the crappiest dinner. It was like some fast casual place, not a real restaurant. He dropped me off and I never heard from him ever again. So this asshole just used me like for free manual labor to move into his new apartment. I think that's the most like New York thing I've ever heard of. Bravo, Moving is expensive. Maybe I should start doing that with my dating.
He used you as a task rabbit and he bought you a crappy dinner?
He did.
But also like in New York with enough money to have a motorcycle and a car because you don't really need either in the city.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He was a few years older than me. He actually, part of me thinks that he was in the Mossad. He had like 3 or 4 different names that he went by. And he also knew like 6 or 7 languages. There were just a lot of details that just seemed really off and strange to me. He called me once and it was like a different name that popped up than the 2 other names I knew of. There were many, many red flags there. But I ignored them all because he had a bike and he drank a beer through his helmet.
Once you have like multiple names or like multiple phones, that's a red flag to me. But another thing, never help anybody move unless you're like in a relationship with them. I helped somebody move fairly recently. We were hanging out for like a month and helped them move. And we had this whole conversation about ghosting when we first started hanging out. And I forgot how it came up, but he was like, what do you think is an appropriate amount of time before it's okay to ghost somebody? I was like, I don't know, maybe like 1 or 2 times. He's like, yeah, I think like if you hang out with somebody 3 times or less, it's appropriate to ghost them. And let me tell you something. We hung out for more than a month. Nothing crazy happened. And our last exchange ended with him never responding to me again. I don't understand. If you're going to bring it up and set those parameters, why?
I literally keep template texts on my phone of like, okay, I'm not feeling this person anymore. Copy and paste, send the breakup text, just be a responsible human and tell them that you don't want to see them again.
And he was moving within a matter of weeks. And I was like, easy out. I don't know. People are so weird.
People are cowards. Like weird is letting them get off. Like dating is an adult thing. Like be an adult. It pisses me off.
Right. I need a couple of times. I feel like the first meeting, unless like it's really horrible, you don't really have a sense of who people are. For me, at least. What's your thought on that? Like first dates versus like having a second date?
Yeah. Well, did you ever watch Jewish Matchmaking on Netflix?
I have not had the privilege yet.
I like every terrible like romance reality show, and that was one of them that I watched. And she would have these sayings, and one of them was date them till you hate them. You should continue to go out with them because you can continue to uncover different things about their personality, but you also balance like what your gut is telling you. Anyone that I've dated long term, or at least had like a situationship with, like I had initial butterflies right away, where you feel a spark. It's perfectly fine to go on a first date and think that's a nice human. If I don't feel that way, because there's so many people in New York, I'm just going to move on to the next person to find that sense of excitement. It's probably not the right thing to do, but I'm having a hard time getting over that.
That is something that I have been unpacking lately. I had somebody tell me, I feel the spark with you sometimes. And I'm like, okay, but the spark is dopamine hits. The spark is chemical spikes. Mm-hmm. In 99.9% of cases, that's not something that is sustainable. And that's not something that you can build a foundation of a relationship on. So I think a lot of people go into this saying like, I'm going to find somebody who I feel this instant attraction and connection to. They fast track these relationships. They're idealizing this person and looking at them through rose-colored glasses, creating this human that doesn't exist. Then you have the crash out.
I know you saw that happened with me earlier this year. I was obsessed with this jazz drummer who did not like me at all. There were so many other people that I went out with who I didn't give a chance to because I was stuck on this person who wanted nothing to do with me. And I think a lot of people are like that, chasing someone who doesn't want you and you're ignoring the people who do.
Yes, because even in dating, it's a supply and demand. But back to the jazz drummer, that's a Sex and the City episode.
Oh my gosh, they were hardly dates, first of all. They were me going to like his gigs and hanging out after. Like that's how much this dude did not like me, is I was going to his workplace and he would like squeeze me in when he wasn't working. The Carrie Bradshaw episode, like I should rewatch it again because everyone brings that up to me after this infatuation that I had. I will say that the like ADHD was true. I remember Carrie had that issue with him. But, and I mean, Javi, you would know this, dating a musician in general, it can be hard, especially if you're not in that like lifestyle.
In my previous relationship, there definitely was a struggle there in terms of him kind of understanding the cadence of my life, and that sometimes I would be up and doing songwriting sessions with people in Korea and Norway at like 5 a.m, or writing or recording vocals for something like that day and night. And he'd be like, why can't we sit on the couch and watch TV? What are you doing? This kind of like erratic, unstable lifestyle, when you have a stable one, can be kind of off-putting and a little scary for people who don't engage with that all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Also for me, like one of my love languages is like quality time. It's hard to spend quality time with someone when your schedules are literally the opposite, So that little situationship, I can't even call it that. It was kind of devastating to me, but I feel like I learned a lot from it. And now I'm trying to kind of not chase that rush of dopamine.
What's the most impulsive decision you've made on a date?
Well, I would say a really crazy thing I did after seeing someone for 2 weeks. I invited them to go to Italy with me. I was going on a work trip and I was extending, and I was like, do you want to meet up with me once I'm done with the work event? And I didn't really think he would say yes, but he literally bought his plane ticket right then and there. I had a lot of trouble pronouncing this person's name. You can't ask someone to pronounce their name again a month in, especially when you're in another country with them. So I never said their name. But that was already stupid in itself. And then what made it worse is that he kind of was a psychopath, and the trip was really bad. I felt like I was trapped in a hotel with someone that I didn't know. And it was kind of scary, honestly. I saw this whole side that I didn't know. And it's not like, how would I know? I only knew him for 2 weeks.
What happened?
He was just really cold to me. Like he didn't want to be there. I had already paid for the hotel. So I was like, yeah, you don't have to chip in, whatever, it's fine. I think that he used me to go to Italy. Like I didn't pay for his flight or the other things, but hotel was expensive, He didn't want to spend time with me in Italy. One of the days where we were supposed to go on this hike in Cinque Terre, he said he had to do work. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go by myself. And he told me I was having a tantrum about it. And I came back early and he was just playing video games. He lied to me. He was not working. So this dude did not like me, did not want to hang out with me. And it was just truly the worst trip I'd ever been on. And it was shortly after my breakup with my ex too. So I was like, oh my God, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have broken up with my ex. Now looking back, it's like fucking hilarious that I did that, but so stupid. I don't know what I was thinking.
Listen, we've all been there. We all have our things that we've done that we look back on and we're like, was that me?
Yeah.
I remember like, actually, I can't tell that story.
That's a lot of what this is. I'm like, nope.
Like, what's the shittiest like dating experience you've had, like where the guy just had like the worst behavior?
I try to stick to like kind of around my age, like max like 5 years older than I am. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to try up to like 12 years older than me. So I'm 32. This guy that I went out with, I want to say was like 44, maybe. We had an okay conversation over the app, but we met. He seemed clean cut, was from Kansas City. So we ended up getting dinner and then we got drinks and we made out a little bit. And it was kind of a fun night. But there was this one moment where I saw this weird temper. He worked in tech and we were talking to these new college grads, and it was like their dream to work for like a tech company. And when they found out that he worked in tech, they were like, oh, where do you work? And he was very standoffish. Well, why do you want to know? These are just like young kids. Just go with it. It's fine. I kind of just brushed it off. Whatever. We get more drinks. So it's fine. Whatever. I go home. He goes home. Second date, we meet up at a wine bar. We were supposed to meet at like 7. It's like 7:15 and he's still not there yet. On the first date, he told me that he's never late to anything. So I texted him at 7:15 and I was like, never late, huh? I was just poking fun at the fact that he said that he's never late to anything.
Yeah, that's a big assertion to make, especially when you're in New York.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually chronically early, so things don't happen for me. But
you've never gotten stuck on the train underground for 45 minutes, Skye? You've never had one of those moments? How long have you lived in the city?
10 years. But no, this was in his neighborhood. So he like really didn't have an excuse. Like if someone sent that to me, I'd be like, I know, I'm sorry. Like I'll be there in a second. He walks in 5 minutes later and he's all huffy and he puts his coat down and he's like, I need to talk to you. That text was not okay. And just kind of starts going off about how like his mother used to like send him texts like that or, you know, get on him for being late to things. And he kept kind of comparing me to his mother, who he also told me that he wasn't really a big fan of. At that point, I'm kind of trying to save the date. And I'm like, I'm sorry, like I wasn't trying to offend you. Like, let's just like move on. Let's have a good time. It's fine. We order wine. I'm like trying to change the subject. And he's like, and another thing. Do you think that you're just so obsessed with time because you're like really neurotic? I was like, are you trying to like start a fight with me? I don't understand what's happening. So after drinks, we were supposed to get dinner. And I told him, I honestly don't really want to get dinner with you because I feel like you're really overreacting to this and I don't feel like this is going to be fun. And he was like, no, like I'm over this. It's fine. I just needed to get that out of my system. I had a bone to pick with you, but we're fine. We're over it.
I had a bone to pick with you.
He used that phrase with me.
I had a bone to pick with you. You sound like my mom.
Yeah, literally. It was like, oh my God, this guy needs therapy. So I very begrudgingly go to the dinner with him. The whole dinner is really awkward. We don't talk about the time thing again, but it's just forced. He's not asking me questions. It just feels awful. So the check comes, we split the bill, and he's like, all right, you want to go to a bar? And I was like, truthfully, no. Like, I didn't enjoy this dinner. I didn't like the way that you reacted to my text. And I don't think we're compatible. And I'm going to go home for the night. Hope you have a good night. He literally just like slams the table, stands up, and was like, you know what? You're being such a bitch. And walks out of the restaurant. And everyone was staring at me. I start shaking. The people next to me asked me if I was okay. I started crying, which was really embarrassing. The waiter came over to me too, and it was like, he was a jerk. He wasn't even very nice to the wait staff either, which is also a huge red flag. And it was just the most shocking experience because I'd never had anyone yell at me.
I remember you texted me right after, and I was like, oh, wow. Unhinged behavior. Did he refer to himself as a high quality male?
I'm sure he thinks that way. He had a very high up job at a prominent company. He's all over the internet. Like he's on the news sometimes. He was kind of a big deal.
Say his name.
No.
I'm kidding. We don't dox people on Are We Dating?
But then after this, I saw that he looked at my Instagram story and I was like, nope, like blocking you. Absolutely not.
That tactic, I think it's called orbiting, when they're like trying to make their presence aware, but they're not reaching out. They just want to like make sure you're still there just in case, just in case.
I didn't know that was a term. I had another person who ghosted me over texting. We never met up. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, was just watching all of my Instagram stories, but he didn't even follow me, which meant that he was looking for my profile to look at my stories.
Yes.
So I texted him and I was like, it makes me really uncomfortable that you're watching everything that I do, but you couldn't respond to my texts. He blocked me and texted me back like, sorry, I won't do it again.
That's really creepy. I imagine too, as a woman, when you have somebody in your stories, somebody like storming off at dinner, you're concerned about your safety.
Absolutely. I just felt totally unsafe with this person and really thankful that this happened in a public place because he seemed like someone who has aggressive tendencies. You hear stories all the time. I mean, that's why they have those scary Netflix documentaries. Shit happens and you have to be on guard all the time.
Anything else that kind of squares the circle of the tones of dates that you've been on?
One date, it didn't necessarily feel dangerous, but it felt crazy. I went to a really fancy cocktail bar. The drinks were each $30. They were crazy, even for New York standards. And I meet up with this guy, and he won't stop talking about how he makes $600,000. He works at Goldman Sachs, owns all these properties, and wouldn't shut up about how rich he is. You could tell it came from a place of insecurity. I asked him if that was the case, and he was like, well, as a person of color, like a lot of white women aren't attracted to me, so I try to make it known that I have other things to offer. So we had an interesting conversation about it where I was like, okay, like we've discussed this. You can stop doing that. Let's just get to know each other. It didn't stop. And then he started love bombing me and saying, I'd love to take you on a trip, was literally looking at flights. Are you free next week? Started saying, whatever life you want, I can give to you. Do you want a loft in the West Village, brownstone and Park Slope? I can do it. I was like, okay, like calm down, calm down. And really like the cherry on top was he pulled up a photo of Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas's baby and was like, if we had a baby, ours would be better looking than this, but it would look like this. I was like, okay. So left the bar. I did make out with him. I shouldn't have done that.
We'll have our moments of weekends.
He bought a lot of those expensive drinks.
We're like, here's a consolation prize.
He texted me the next day. He said that he really liked me. And I was honest with him that I didn't, feel a spark. I thought that was the end of it. A couple months later, he texted me and asked if I'd be willing to meet up with him again to talk about it. I told him I wasn't interested, but good luck out there. He texted me again, no, let's please meet up. And I just didn't respond because I already told him no. He texted me again, probably 3 hours later. Hello. I didn't respond to that either. Everyone was like, you should block him. But I was kind of curious to see if he would text me again. And the next morning he was like, wow, you didn't respond, ... He never sent me another text after that.
There's nothing worse to me than love bombing and future faking. I love when people are like, you're on a first date with them. And they're like, yeah, my friend Maria, she does da-da-da-da. You'll meet her soon. We just met 5 minutes ago.
I know, you're not meeting Maria.
I know that in Italy, she makes really amazing pasta. You'll meet her one day. And I'm like, what? Will I meet that? Will I be eating that pasta? It's so irritating.
I've done things like that where you get caught up in the moment, but it's kind of a rampant issue with some people where they do it with everyone consistently and then they ghost you.
Yep. One straight comment after a few drinks is one thing, but when you're having a conversation and they're referencing everybody in their lives or all these circumstances and it's like, oh yeah, we'll go to this place or we'll do this thing. I'm just like, okay, babe. So we talked about some creeps and weirdos. How about fun, memorable dating experiences?
I had a really good first date with my ex-boyfriend. Funny enough, it was actually a Zoom date right in the beginning of COVID. We both were like, okay, we're both gonna order in food, order in some cocktails. We talked for 3 or 4 hours to the point where we had to take bathroom breaks. And it was one of the best dates I ever went on, which kind of makes me think maybe I should do Zoom dates now.
I was going to ask, I know you've engaged in other methods of dating. What else have you tried and how successful have those methods been?
I'm Jewish. On Friday, I signed up to go to a Shabbat dinner where they sit you at tables with people that you would be compatible with, but they didn't choose me, which made me sad. Maybe there were just too many women who signed up.
It's probably not an inherent flaw.
We'll see. I was very interested in that. So I'm hoping that there's another event and they'll choose me. I did this other thing. There's an app called Foreplay. I think it's called Foreplay. For some, you and a friend swipe as a duo and then go out with another friend duo for a double date. The friend I did it with is a lot younger than me. We went on one date. They were really boring and awful. And they were just kind of young, inexperienced dummies. but like, I'm glad that we did it. My friend was like, we're never doing that again. And I was like, no, let's just swipe and see who else we get. She wasn't into it. I'm willing to put myself out there and do strange things if it means having an interesting experience. There's this guy that I met. He hosts a naked stand-up comedy show.
You told me about that guy before, right? You never dated, you just like chatted.
He was a really, really nice guy, but he has a podcast about sex. It's called the Man Whore Podcast. He's just like very sexually positive and very sexually open, which I think is great, but it wasn't a match for me. But I think he's cool and really brilliant and really nice. And he hosts this really great naked stand-up comedy show. It's gotten a lot of press. When I went there, Reuters interviewed me why I was there. So he was just like someone that I met through that event. He has an interesting story to tell. He actually hosts speed dating, and he invited me to one, but it was for poly speed dating. Like I said, I'm not interested in poly relationships. If there's a monogamous one, I would definitely be open to it.
I'm very curious about speed dating. It's not naked though, right?
No, the speed dating is not naked, but wouldn't that be funny? I would maybe do that. I don't know.
So naked comedy, are you doing that solo? You're not going to take your date to the comedy show.
I don't think that's a good first date. I think that's a decent third date.
Kind of like a great first date because it's all unhinged. It's like, we're going on a first date to nude comedy.
I will say though, so he used to have it in a venue. It was in a sex club, actually, where if you sat in the first two rows, the audience was also allowed to be naked. He's moved it because it's gotten pretty popular. Now it's at a comedy club where the audience is not allowed to be naked.
Have you sat in the first two rows?
No, I haven't.
That's not something I would expect you to do.
Maybe I would. Not for a first date, but maybe with a friend I would. You can't take photos or anything.
Is there wine?
It's BYOB.
Perfect. Okay, no pictures and BYOB.
Well, it's BYOB as in booze, and then BYOB as in bring your own butt towel.
Oh my gosh. Buckle up, baby.
I know.
I know that you recently got back from your first cruise, right?
I took one in middle school, but this was my first adult cruise, yes. I did this with my mom and her husband. It was 4-night cruise to one of those private islands. So it was very much about being on the boat and not so much about the actual destinations. It was right what I needed. All I wanted to do was drink a pina colada next to a body of water. So I did that.
I feel like a lot of people have all of these hang-ups about cruises. Actually, funny story. I did go on a cruise with my ex-partner's family, and we did this really awesome Mediterranean cruise.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience. We're starting in Venice, and then we're going to go to Regals, we're going to see Montenegro, we're going to see Croatia. Very cool trip and itinerary. We're in Venice for 2 days, and then we have to take a little boat to the port where the boat is docked. And we get over there, and there's crew there, but the boat isn't there. And they're like, hey, you can leave your luggage here, but if you want to go back to Venice and come back, the boat may not be here soon. I see these two American girls walking over, and I just hear them say overboard. And I'm like, huh? I don't want to explore that right now. Let me go have lunch in Venice and just chill. Went to Venice, had lunch. As we're getting to Venice, we see the boat come back and we're like, okay, great. By the time we have lunch and get back, they'll have disembarked, cleaned it, and it'll be time to get on. But when we get back, there's weird energy and there's definitely whispers and chatter. So we go to the excursions desk because my ex's mom is just the best travel agent. So that before we even dropped our luggage, whatever, it's we're going to the excursions desk to see if this itinerary change is going to impact our excursions and what we're doing. So we get there, and there's this over-the-top Jamaican man who reminds me of Titus Andromedon from Kimmy Schmidt. Very much that energy. He's like, are you from the UK? And we're like, no. He's like, thank you, Jesus. And we're like, why? And he's like, well, let me tell you what happened. There was a couple on the boat. It was a British flight attendant and her partner. And when they got on the boat, from the moment they got on the boat, they were fighting like cats and dogs. They disturbed everybody on the cruise so much that the captain and crew made a decision to separate them and put them on opposite sides of the boat. This was over the course of the entire trip, because I think they did the same itinerary as us, and it was about a week long. So the last night of their itinerary, a woman mysteriously vanishes from the boat at the stroke of midnight.
No.
So they have an overboard situation. And the next day, when this is discovered, the cruise ship went on a search and rescue mission. So they were on that rescue mission for the entire morning before they realized they weren't going to find her. So they like dispatched the Coast Guard to like see if they could find her, and they came and got us. So we find this out and I'm like, that's insane. This just happened. Is this cruise ship haunted? What's going on? I go into my cabin, I turn on the TV and I'm flipping through and I flip to BBC and our boat and the woman was there on the screen. The Coast Guard found her hours after the cruise ship had given up. And she credited singing to herself and doing yoga to surviving being at sea in the Mediterranean for 12 hours.
Floating yoga?
She was floating in the Mediterranean overnight. And I looked out at night from the ship. It is pitch black. I would have just died out of fear. I would have expired. And the other thing is, I went like Lady Gaga at the Capitol building. I was investigating what happened with this woman because we found out that she fell from the top of the cruise ship. So I went up to the top of the cruise ship. The partition goes up to my head. You got to climb on this thing and jump. They found her. She was fine. She was very grateful. She thanked everybody. And then she and her partner, with whom she had been fighting the entire time, had a tearful reunion and went home together. So I know a ton of people missed their flights, and we missed going to Montenegro completely. We missed our whole day there. I want to be considerate. Maybe there were some issues and I should have compassion, but I really think that these two people were just in a super toxic relationship.
Wonder if they're still together.
We should investigate. But if you go on and you look at a British flight attendant falls off cruise ship, It's all over the news. It was in the Daily Mail.
Ow, that's crazy, Javi.
No, I mean, it was just so weird to see like the ship on TV as I'm boarding. You had a less crazy time, but you tried to go to a singles night.
I did try to go to a singles night. My mom was like, you gotta go. I didn't want to. First of all, it was at a bar called Vintages, which like, that's not a good sign. It opens at 7. I show up at 7:15 and there were just 2 people sitting at the bar. They were probably like 75 years old. I just turned right around and then I just went back to the hot tub.
I think you said that there are people looking for a little bit of a wild time on this ship.
Yeah. A lot of people decorate their doors on cruise ships. There's a big swingers community on cruise ships. It's a really big part of the culture. I probably saw 10 of these who would put upside down pineapples on their door. Some of them, would just be the pineapples. So if you didn't know, like you would have no clue what it was. Others would say things like into shenanigans or like, let's switch it up. But it made me wonder, I'm like, what if you knock on the door and you're like, I do not like the look of that couple? Can you just be like, never mind? What about the house cleaners? Are they seeing this and being like, oh no, this is going to be a disgusting bed to clean? And I was so curious to see who was going into these rooms, but I never did.
You didn't like camp out outside of one of the pineapple rooms down the hallway?
It seems like something I would do, but there were pina coladas calling my name.
Much better use of your time. I know some gay dudes who go on the cruises and they're basically circuit parties at sea. Everybody's scantily clad and people are just like kind of wasted. Honestly, not my scene.
I think you should do just one and just see what it's like just for yourself.
I don't think I could do like a full itinerary of that. Circuit music, I'd have to know that I could escape. I know that there's shows and other things.
Yeah, they probably have bingo on the side too. Maybe that's more your speed.
I do not need to go on a cruise to play bingo, but thank you. As we wind down, I want to know all of this dating you've done. What have you learned about yourself?
I think a lot of single people are dating because they're afraid to die alone. And I think about that phrase a lot. 1, a lot of people who are married die alone. 2, when you're dead, you don't feel anything. So like, who cares? I'm dating for different reasons now. I'm dating for someone not to make my life complete, but to make it better. Like if I don't meet someone and fall in love, I'm going to be okay. The more I go out with people, the more I realize I have a lot to offer. And if nothing else, it's at least been an interesting way to meet new people and learn about the world. And I think that's invaluable.
Absolutely. And I think approaching it that way too, it takes some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
I think it helps you to be more present when you're like, okay, this is an experience that I'm going to have that's going to shape me somehow. I think that's a great perspective and a great takeaway. What is the most New York thing about the way you date? I know some people, they're like, I will not date somebody who lives above 14th Street.
I mean, I'm not dating anyone in New Jersey. I'm not taking a PATH train to get to you. I can't do it. I would definitely prefer if someone was on the east side of Manhattan, but I'll make the west side work. But I would like to not have to transfer trains to get to you. Not a deal breaker, but just a preference.
Jersey's a deal breaker?
Oh, Jersey's definitely a deal breaker. 100%. I'll go to Brooklyn. I'll go to Astoria.
I used to live in Astoria, and I think a lot of people have this like barrier to entry with Queens where it feels so far away. I was working downtown in the West Village, and getting from Astoria to the West Village, it's like some days. I would get up so late for work and be on time, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of time turner I've employed today, but it's not as bad as people think.
I used to live in Astoria too, and then have to go in once a week to Financial District. It would take me like 45 minutes, which is fine. Your LA listeners have no clue what we're talking about.
They're going to be like, I won't date anybody east of La Brea. Okay, so misconceptions about dating in New York.
Every movie that shows dating in New York shows some person so obsessed with their career, they don't have time for anything else. In New York, I found that dating is a priority for a lot of people who are also career driven.
That is so the archetype and or stereotype in films. Oh, I'm so busy. I have my high-powered job. I don't have time for love. Papers on the desk, disheveled from doing so much. If the person wants to make time, they will make time.
Yes, exactly. And if they're not making time, they're not giving you mixed signals, they don't want to see you.
Any advice that you could give someone who's dating and feels hopeless about the process?
I think it's easy to change yourself for someone to seem easygoing or adaptable, or maybe you feel that you're an acquired taste or you're not lovable, but I think there is someone for everyone. Dating is a numbers game. The more people that you meet, the more people you're going to find that find your quirkiness really special and endearing. You got to keep moving on until you find someone who appreciates you.
Great advice. Is there a place where people can find you and connect?
Yes, slide into my DMs. I'm on Instagram, Skye Rubel. I'm open to meeting a lot of really interesting, diverse people. So if anything I said resonated with you, would love to meet up and talk over a drink.
Citizens of New York, I will tag Skye's name in the description. Hit her up. Make sure you behave. I think we covered a lot of ground. Thank you for being the first person.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was so much fun. You were the perfect first guest. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Javi.
See you soon.